Hey, this is Neeson, part of the Young Philosopher Society Underground Canada. That's ypscanada.com. I'm here today to talk about some more crazy stuff. What I want to talk about today ties in with CERN, quantum computers, the atom, and how it all comes from dead people, apparently. Now, I know you're probably thinking, old Neeson's gone crazy here, but I'm just looking in these people's own writings and their books and all this different stuff, and this is where I'm finding this information and just kind of connecting the dots. The first thing I want to talk about is this guy. His name was C.W. Leadbeater, or Charles Webster Leadbeater. He was a huge proponent of Helena Blavatsky and the occult in general. If you just scan down to the bottom here and look at all these different books, you can see that he talks about everything from dreams to the occultic in chemistry and a message from the unseen. He just has a whole bunch of stuff here. And the thing I want to talk about today is the messages from the unseen. And so what I'm doing in a lot of my writings, just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from a lot of this stuff, the whole thing on philosophy is that's what our society, that's what all this stuff revolves around, is philosophy. And it seems to me like when I go into about the year 1000 onward, it's all philosophers who are developing mathematical science concepts, all this different stuff. It's philosophy. We're living in a philosopher's world. Hence the reason that I created the Young Philosopher Society. It's supposed to be kind of an angle to go at these guys from their own level. Anyways, so I was looking into some of this guy's writings, and it's absolutely mind-boggling what he's talking about here. Just to give you an example, in this book, Messages from the Unseen by this guy, you just scan down here for a little bit, and it's right around the 1%. And so he's talking about the astral projection, all this different stuff, and how it's being used to talk with dead people. And here it is. It says, "I am not for a moment denying that sometimes useful information has been communicated from the unseen world. I have read books of quite a number of valuable facts being given to us by dead people to the living. Indeed, I happen to know personally one or two of such cases. For example, many years ago when General Drayson and I were fellow members of the London Lodge, he received from some dead astronomer an exceedingly valuable statement about what it is called for the second rotation of the Earth. And it just goes on about how truthful this is and all that. But even further, he goes on and talks about the creation of the atom. And he says another case is that the book written by a certain Mr. Babbitt in America called The Principles of Light and Color. He is rather fantastic in many ways, but we find a number of statements in which that the book are untrue. And I am told that he received them in a number of ways. I do not know what way exactly, through spiritualistic influence, inspiration, or teaching. For one thing, he was the first man, so far as we know, to depict a physical ultimate atom. We find drawings in his book in which very closely corresponds to that which our president and I made about 20 years later." And so there you go. Like, these guys are talking about getting information from literal dead people. Now, this is where I believe that the deception actually comes from. It just changes over time of who these people in this astral dimension actually are. They change from aliens, they go from angels, they go from dead people. It's all just a complete deception. In the previous videos, I've talked about how Lucifer uses this rainbow, and that is the deception, because the astral dimension, it consists of these 7 different layers or 7 different dimensions. And, they're just, each layer is a different outlook on deception. It's like you think you're seeing an angel, but it's ultimately just some sort of mechanism, and you're kind of a puppet in there, while the puppet master is Lucifer, just controlling all these different, they're just visions. That's all they are. They're false visions in which people are saying, sorry if I can't elaborate on that a little bit better, but that's pretty much just how I see it. And so the thing about this H.P. Leadbeater and why he's important is I've talked about him in this video I made, Satanic California. And in it I talk about how he elaborates on the 6th root race that Helena Blavatsky was talking about. And here it just says, according to C.W. Leadbeater, a colony will be established in Baja, California by the Theosophical Society under the guidance of masters of ancient wisdom in the 28th century for the intensive selective eugenic breeding of the 6th root race. And it goes on to talk about the Master Moria will be physically incarnate to order of create this Manu, or progenitor of the new root race. By that time, the world will be empowered by nuclear power, and there will be a single world government led by a person who will be the reincarnation of Julius Caesar. Now, 2 interesting things about this. First of all, I just read an article here on Infowars today. Take Infowars however you want. I don't completely believe everything they say or everything they're about, but they are a good alternative media source because they don't just cover politics. They cover a lot of different stuff. Mostly it is just politics nowadays because that's all people want to hear. But Anyways, I found this article on there, and it says that Russian analyst calls for nuclear attack on Yellowstone National Park. The reason I found this interesting was just right below in this little headline here. It says the reason that it would be why they want to attack this Yellowstone is Russian geopolitical analyst Konstantin Sikvov has called for Moscow to launch a nuclear attack on Yellowstone National Park and the San Andreas fault line. And so it's tying in this whole, the reason that, like, that's what I was saying, this root race here, they're talking about the San Andreas fault line breaking off and creating this island of California. And that's what it all ties in with why the chemtrails, I believe, this is just my opinion, but I believe they're kind of driving people out of California right now because they're depopulating the area in order for it to, I don't know, break off, and then they'll reestablish it with this completely satanic colony. That's what it kind of looks like to me, but interpretation's up to the listener. Another interesting thing about what C.W. Leadbeater said about this society being created in California is he talks about the reincarnation of Julius Caesar. Now, I was actually startled to come across some information in which it said that the very first prototype of CERN was actually, its name was Caesar. Now, I don't know what's going on with these with CERN, or what the whole intent or the outcome is going to be. I don't know if it's actually going to open the gates of hell, or if it's going to create a ton of energy, and which ultimately will be kind of inhabited by a person or a number of people. They'll take in this energy and it'll kind of embody them. That's what seems to happen in a lot of satanic rituals. By the looks of it, it's like when people do these pentagrams inside of a circle, whatever, it creates energy, and the energy is taken in by the person that's conducting these rituals. So, and it's not just energy, it's an actual entity which is kind of created through doing these rituals, which ultimately possesses the person doing the ritual. And so I don't know if maybe like this first prototype of CERN, they did one of these, they got it going and everything, and then there's this energy created, and ultimately the energy, it summoned a demon, and then the demon inhabited somebody's body, which is really, created, which could have been the reincarnation of Caesar kind of coming back and inhabiting somebody's body. This is the whole kind of like the Moonchild concept, only you're not doing a ritual and taking just implanting a spirit into some random woman's body. You're actually creating the energy and, like I say, inhabiting the spirit yourself. Pretty complex. I hope you understand it there. Like I say, I'm not the best talker out there. Now, next, I just want to talk about the concept, how this kind of ties in with the whole concept of the string theory. So like I said, the whole thing with natural evolution, Charles Darwin's natural evolution, and his cousin Charles Dalton, this is all meant to it's a dehumanization at its basics in order to alter the human species. That's my whole take on it anyways. Like I say, this is totally up to interpretation out there, but that's what it seems like to me. There's no proof that we've evolved or any of this type of stuff. It's just really to discredit the human race and make us less special. But the reason I want to talk, I just kind of talk about that is because when we look at the whole string theory concept, I believe that's what it is all about. I'm no expert on this stuff or anything, but pretty much what it means is that there are 2 points, A and B, and both exist at the same time. And so there's, input equals output kind of thing. And it all ties in with this linear progression of evolution. I believe, that's how I believe it ties anyways. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense. Anyways, I just want to highlight a quick little spot here. The earliest version of string theory, bosonic string theory, incorporated only the class of particles known as bosons. It was then developed into superstring theory, which posits that a connection, a supersymmetry, exists between bosons and a class of particles called fermions. String theory requires the existence of extra spatial dimensions for mathematical consistency. In realistic physical models constructed from string theory, extra dimensions are typically compactified to extremely small scales. Now, this is just, again, interesting because, this is what the whole thing about CERN is. It's all about creating the God particle or bosons or whatever you want to call them. And, they're talking about going into extra spatial dimensions and solving mathematical concepts. This is kind of how I first became interested in the whole idea of quantum computers. It didn't make sense to me why these computers were going into different dimensions to solve problems. But when you go back and you look at the works of the C.W. Leadbeater, he talks about when you go into this astral dimension and you bring back information from one of these dead people or demons or whatever you want to call them, they don't paint a really good picture. It's just an isolated piece of information. And so what I believe that they're doing with the whole CERN and quantum computers, all this different stuff, is they're creating more consistent, they're painting a better picture and connecting the dots better of what's happening in the astral world. Like they're taking this crazy information, which is coming from this other dimension, and it's all isolated information. But as they create these machines and they're bringing the stuff back to Earth and doing all this interaction with it, like I say, they're painting a better picture of what's going on in this astral world, and it's kind of combining the two realities of our world and their world together. It's some pretty complex stuff, and like I say, I'm not the best at elaborating on this, but that's what's happening, is they're trying to connect the dots of these different dead species of these demons in this astral world. That's what they say anyways. I don't actually think that's what's happening. Like I say, I think this is just complete deception coming from the fallen angels, the Lucifer, whatever you want to call it. And that's the whole thing with CERN. And maybe it is gonna be a huge portal that ultimately punches a hole into a different dimension and allows these creatures to come into our world. That's the way it seems to go. When you just look at the continual use of the number 666, all these different iconography used. It's just really weird. And so I'm sorry if I was kind of rambling today or jumping or muttering and everything. It's kind of complex, and I'm trying to get this out there in a clear manner. But pretty much the basics of it all is just go look at this H.W. Leadbeater, and it says right in his own words, and like I say, he had a lot of really influential books, like this occult chemistry. These are some pretty heavy topics that these guys are talking about, and they're literally talking about going into a different dimension and talking with, well, in his words, it's dead people, but this changes from time to time, and it's just getting really ugly on planet Earth. And I think there's a real strong correlation between all the suffering and misery that we're witnessing and what these guys are doing behind the scenes with this kind of stuff. So thanks for tuning in. Till next time. Peace out.